What's up, people? This is Derek J407 here, back to you once again to give my thoughts on this week's episode of NXT live from Full Sail University on December 18th, 2019. What I assume is the final live episode of NXT, although they did announce there's going to be some matches on next week's show on Christmas, so I don't know if that's taped or what the deal is. I know AEW won't be airing next week, so tonight was Dynamite, the last live episode of Dynamite for the year, and they'll be off next week. But NXT, I don't know if it's taped, and I assume it is because I haven't heard otherwise, but regardless, yeah. So this show tonight was, I assume, the last live one because they really built it up big time. They had an Nxt Championship match, an Nxt Women'S Championship match. Those were the two big matches that were hyped up, and one was at the top, the other was at the end, and in the middle were a couple other really good matches. But the two matches that this show was built around was Finn Balor challenging Adam Cole for the Nxt Championship, which they announced earlier in the week would kick off the show commercial free, and then the main event being Rhea Ripley challenging Shayna Baszler for the Nxt Women'S Championship. I can tell you right now, one of those championships did change hands. I think it's pretty obvious which one, because I'm pretty sure by this point you all know which one it was, but you know, and I'm sure you also know by this point that both matches were really, really good, because in both matches you had two competitors each that are pretty damn good at wrestling and telling stories and doing really cool stuff. Both had really cool finishes. One sets up a big storyline and feud that should have started already, but had to get delayed due to injury, and now we'll have the chance to flourish in the beginning of the new year. And the other finish was just a very drama-filled finish that was just a great happy ending and a great mark and end point for this show. So all that being said, let's go ahead and get right into it. Like I said, they kicked the show off with the NXT Championship match. Finn Balor, the Prince, challenging the leader of the Undisputed Era and the NXT Champion, Adam Cole. Baby. I don't know why that sounded weird coming from me. Well, it sounded lame coming from me because it didn't come from Adam Cole. Balor got this spot after winning a triple threat number one contenders match last week against Keith Lee and Tommaso Ciampa. So the match was set up for this show here. Going in, I think the end result, the entire ending, in terms of who was going to win and how they were going to win, I think it was a little obvious after Balor won last week, but that didn't really stop me from enjoying the match because this was a really good match. Here you have two heels who are going back and forth, but you have two heels who are extremely over with the crowd, especially in Full Sail, so you had a pretty split reaction, although I think there was more heavier support for Adam Cole than there was for Balor, but it was pretty deadlocked for different points of the match. And like I mentioned, it was commercial free. AEW did the exact same thing. They had a big match on their show. It was a tag team match with Hangman Page and Kenny Omega against the Lucha Brothers, and that was also commercial free. And while I did, have that up on a different screen and it was peeking at AEW Dynamite every now and then throughout the show, my focus was locked on NXT, and especially this match. Like I mentioned, it was a really good match. At one point down the stretch, they were both guys were on the outside. Balor ended up drop kicking Adam Cole into the barricade, and the barricade kind of collapsed and fell onto fans in the front row, or fans, I should say, plants in the front row. Got Adam Cole back in the ring, went for the coup de grace, but he missed, and that tweaked his knee because Cole was working over Balor's knee throughout the majority of the match. So when he came down, feet driving right into the ring, that tweaked his knee. He goes down. Cole hits the last shot, but it's only good for a 2 count. But then the finish saw Balor. He recuperated. He got Cole down, hit him with the coup de grace, got him back up, was going for the 1916 to put him away, but then Balor stopped and looked over to the entranceway, and the look that came over his face, it looked like he saw a ghost, and that's basically what happened, because out came, very slowly walking out, was Johnny Gargano. The last time we saw Johnny Gargano was the same night that Finn Balor first turned heel. He attacked Gargano. He laid him out with the 1916 DDT on the outside on the steel rampway, and either that move or Gargano had already existing injuries in his neck, and he had to miss TakeOver War Games, which was the first TakeOver Gargano missed in like 15 takeovers, or some number like that. So Gargano, he didn't get in the ring, he didn't do anything yet, he was slowly walking out, but this distracted Balor enough, and even distracted the referee, because the referee had his back turned, and behind the ref's back, Adam Cole hit Balor with a low blow. Balor goes down, gets hit with the last shot, and that is it. Adam Cole retains the NXT Championship, and it's all thanks to Johnny Gargano. So Gargano makes his way down the ringside. He finds himself a steel chair, gets in the ring. Balor, he's on his knees, he's begging off, but Gargano just starts unloading on him with the steel chair, just beats Balor mercilessly with the chair, until eventually Balor finds some distance and manages to escape through the crowd, and Gargano, he kind of went over to the rampway right in the spot where he had his head smashed into it, and was kind of crouched down looking at that, and then he walked out. And of course the fans were going crazy for all this, so I think it's safe to say this is easily going to be the match at the next TakeOver special, which is in Portland at some point in February. It's going to be on a Sunday night in February, so I know that. But this was the match that was originally scheduled for War Games, until Gargano went down with the legit injury and was replaced by Matt Riddle. So here, I think it's pretty obvious that this is going to pick itself back up. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean that Gargano can just immediately wrestle right now. Maybe, they're still waiting a little bit. But, like I said, the next TakeOver isn't until February. So there's hopefully enough time for him to, be back. Obviously, they wouldn't have done this unless Gargano was somewhat cleared to go. So, yeah, like I said, a really good match and a really good finish there. Up next, we had Damian Priest taking on Killian Dane. Damian Priest making his return to Full Sail, because the last time we saw him, he was at Survivor Series, but they wanted to point to a rib injury that befell Damian Priest at the hands of Killian Dane during their match at War Games. It was the triple threat that also involved Pete Dunne. During the course of that match, Killian Dane ended up injuring Damian Priest's ribs, and so that kind of played a factor in this match. He had the ribs taped up with the Kinesi tape and all that stuff, but Dane was working over it basically the entire time. And to show you how great this match was, one of the highlights of it was at one point the crowd broke out into a shave your back hair chants. So that was entertaining. But that's not to discredit this match, because it was actually a pretty good match. The finish saw Dane. He went up for the Vader Bomb. He came down, but Damian Priest got the knees up, and then he hit the Reckoning finisher on Killian Dane to get the win. Big reaction for Damian Priest after the match. Dude's legit. Pretty sure his name was Punishment Martinez when he was in Ring of Honor. I was very impressed with him there, and I've been impressed with him and his overall presentation so far in NXT. Something that I've said to other people is that Damian Priest now is what Baron Corbin should be, but is not. So Damian Priest is a better version of Baron Corbin. But yeah, I'll take whatever I can get, and I'm very impressed with Damian Priest, and I expect big things for him in the future, especially in the coming year. Speaking of new things in the coming year, they announced the return of the Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic in the new year, and they announced that on the January 1st show, they will be announcing the teams who will be participating in the Dusty Classic for the new year. So that'll be exciting. The Dusty Classic is usually a really fun tournament and provides a lot of really great matches. So it'll be good to see who all is involved with that. Next match was Cameron Grimes versus Kushida. This has turned into a little mini feud over the last few weeks, ever since Kushida returned from injury. Just last week, Kushida caused Cameron Grimes to lose his match to Raul Mendoza, so this was their next matchup. They had a match before on Kushida's first night back, but Kushida got the win with a roll-up or something like that, so this was their second match to tie it up, and that's basically what happened. But this was a really good match. I enjoyed it. I think I saw other people, they probably enjoyed it a little bit better than me, but I thought it was really good. Just fast-paced action. I'm not the biggest Cameron Grimes fan, but I've always been a Kushida fan, especially from when he was in New Japan. You know, I dig the whole get-up. His theme song in NXT is really cool, and his whole entrance I really like, and he's a pretty good wrestler, in case you didn't already know. And Cameron Grimes, despite not really being a fan of him or his character or anything like that, he is a good wrestler. So you put these two together, give them enough time, they're going to have a really good match. And that's what we got here. But it was Cameron Grimes who shocked me by getting the victory. Kushida went for the hoverboard, but Grimes basically ducked it and hit his cave-in foot stomp out of nowhere. You know, just leaped up and just foot stomp right down, knocked down Kushida and got the win. So a very shocking finish to me, but a very big win for Cameron Grimes. I assume there's going to be a rubber match at some point. I don't know if it's going to be on a future episode of NXT or if it's going to be at the next TakeOver special. But after this match, I would not mind seeing these two compete against each other again. So good stuff here. Up next, another match. No promo segments, no skits or anything like that on this show, or AEW for that. Well, maybe there was. I didn't pay that close attention, but I know on this show there really wasn't anything like that. They treated this like they've treated NXT in the earlier days when it first moved to USA and was live. It was just match after match after match. So treating it like its own takeover or pay-per-view, you know, with just constant matches. And this was a big show, so they wanted to put a lot of the focus on getting as many good matches in there as they could. So we had another one up next. It was Io Shirai and Santana Garrett. Santana Garrett got a hell of a lot more offense in this match than I figured she would. She looked very impressive, but Santana Garrett is pretty good. But of course, so is Io Shirai, and Io Shirai is the one. She's the big favorite. She's the darling in NXT. She's personally my favorite in the entire NXT women's division right now. I think I rank her right above Shayna Baszler and Rhea Ripley. But yeah, so you knew she was going to get the win, and she did. She hit the running knees in the corner, laid out Santana Garrett, and went up and hit the moonsault, a beautiful looking moonsault, even if she landed on her knees instead of her midsection, despite what the commentator said. But hey, she won with it. It looks great, and it's a hell of a lot better than Charlotte's moonsaults, so all good. Up next, we had another match, Pete Dunne versus Travis Banks. Battle of some UK stars here, although I guess the way this was positioned, it was more NXT versus NXT UK, since that's what's going to be the next big event coming up. Royal Rumble weekend, the Worlds Collide tournament that they usually do is going to be in place of a takeover special, and it's going to be NXT versus NXT UK, and I guess Pete Dunne is technically a sole NXT talent, while Travis Banks, the Kiwi Buzzsaw or something like that, he is solely NXT UK. So it was a battle of the inner brands here, and they had a pretty good match. Pete Dunne got the win with the bitter end, but this all built up to the main event for the NXT Women's Championship. Shayna Baszler defending her championship against Rhea Ripley. Up to this point, Shayna Baszler, she's been a two-time champion, but this current reign started last October at the Evolution pay-per-view, where she regained her championship from Kairi Sane. And ever since then, she's beaten Kairi Sane, she's beaten Io Shirai, she's beaten Bianca Belair, she's beaten... Who else has she beaten? She's Candice LeRae, she beat her. She went up to the main roster and beat Becky Lynch and Bayley in a triple threat match in the main event of a pay-per-view. So she's ran through just about everyone there is to run through in the NXT Women's division, except Rhea Ripley. This is a feud that started a few months ago, and then of course it led to the War Games match, which despite a 4-on-2 advantage for Team Baszler, Rhea Ripley and Candice LeRae were the survivors, and they won. Rhea won by pinning Shayna, and that is basically what catapulted her to getting this championship match. So all this, the promo packages and all that stuff for both women, there was a real big fight feel for this match, and it kind of played off. You know, the crowd was really hot for this one. They were really into Rhea Ripley. This woman is 23 years old, and she is already one of the most over women in the entire company. At least according to this crowd, she is. And I'd be lying if I said I wasn't a big fan of her as well. I dug her work in the Mae Young Classic, not the first year. I'm talking about the second year when she came back, and she completely altered her look to what we see now. And her work there was great. Her work in NXT UK, she's a former NXT UK Women's Champion, so her whole presence, her whole demeanor, her whole delivery, her promos, her in-ring skills, all of it. I am a big fan of Rhea Ripley, and I look at her as this is the woman. If it's not going to be anyone else, which I was in support of heel Io Shirai taking the championship from her and doing Io and Candice LeRae for the championship going forward, but if there was someone you wanted to be that top big baby face to dethrone Shayna Baszler, I said, you know what? The way they've been having her, the way they've been presenting her, the way they've been building her up, Rhea Ripley is the one to do it. Did that happen? Well, you already know, but why don't you humor me while I talk about this really cool match? The match really didn't, start really clicking until Jessamyn Duke and Marina Shafir, they came out and they provided the interference for a brief second. They tried, but they failed. They tried to interfere, but Rhea managed to stop them. They were both on the outside, and Rhea hit a rolling senton off the apron, took out both of those women, but Shayna was in the pile-up too, but she managed to get out of the way, so it was only Duke and Shafir who got taken out. Meanwhile, Shayna came from behind, took down Rhea, and then stomped her arm into the steps, into the steel steps. So I think it was her left arm, so she was selling an arm injury from this point on. And with Shayna Baszler, the big thing in her matches is joint manipulation and just pulling back arms and muscles and all that kind of stuff. Very uncomfortable shit, and that's basically what we got from the remainder of the match, with Shayna in control. But while she was doing her kicks, Rhea Ripley managed to catch one of them, and she fought her way back through. She fought back up. She ended up drop kicking Shayna, but she did so by drop kicking Shayna into the referee. The referee goes down. She gets up. Shayna hits her with the Riptide, but is no referee. There's no referee in sight. The fans are counting all the way up to like 10 or some number like that, but the referee's out. Shayna rolls to the outside. Rhea follows her, goes for the rolling senton off the apron again, but this time Shayna moves, and Rhea just splat right on the ground. Shayna locks her in the Karafuda clutch for a quick second, and then she manages to find a steel chair. She throws it in the ring. It's right in the center of the ring. The referee is slowly getting back up, and we see this brief face-off on both sides of the ring on the outside between Shayna Baszler and Rhea Ripley. They lock eyes. They try to fight towards it, but it's Shayna who gets to it first. She ends up DDTing Rhea on the steel chair. The referee comes to, he goes over, goes for the cover, only good for a 2 count. Then we see the closing minutes of this match, which was just great. We see Shayna Baszler lock in Rhea Ripley in the Karafuda clutch. This is the same move that basically every other woman who has faced Shayna Baszler has been locked in. And how many times have we seen it where it's like, okay, maybe she'll be the one to escape. The only person we saw slightly escape was Kairi Sane, who I think all she did was just reverse the move to pin Shayna. But everyone else, we saw it with Bianca Belair, we saw it with Io Shirai, we saw it with Candice LeRae, we've seen it with everyone, where it's like they're gonna fight their way out. They're fighting a little bit, getting her up, but then they eventually fall. So we were seeing that here with Rhea. She constantly kept trying to fight her way into the ropes, but every single time she got just a hair away from it, Shayna would kind of re-maneuver the move and would reapply it and would lock it deep in. Rhea was just struggling. She was fighting. She was crawling and scratching, all that kind of stuff. And then it looked like she was down for the count. She was completely out, completely unconscious. The referee went for the arm, threw the arm up, waited for it to fall down. But instead, Rhea quickly snatched the referee by the collar, by the shirt, and was pulling on him and tugging, and used him to kind of help her pull herself back up. And when she did, she got Shayna down, grabbed her by the arms, and just started stomping on her. So Rhea Ripley, as far as I know, is the first woman to officially escape the Karafuda clutch. So that was really cool. She couldn't celebrate long with that, though. She got trapped in the corner. Step up knee strike from Baszler. Baszler gets her up, seated on the top turnbuckle. She goes up there, locks eyes with her, is talking shit, but then Rhea hauls back, hits her with the headbutt, and then gets her in position for the riptide. Meanwhile, Rhea is standing right on the middle rope, and from there she just plummets and just crash lands Shayna Baszler right to the middle of the ring with the riptide. Gets the 1, 2, 3, and Rhea Ripley manages to dethrone Shayna Baszler and is your new NXT Women's Champion. The fans erupted. The fans were already on their feet all throughout the match, but once the whole spot with the clutch came in, they were into this whole ending. Just like me, I was on my feet too. And this was a really cool ending. When they show the replays, they come back from that, and the ring is filled with, I thought it was, people on the roster, but it looked like it was a combination of fans and all that kind of stuff, maybe family and friends of Rhea's and all that kind of stuff. But it was this sea of humanity in the middle of the ring, all cheering on Rhea Ripley. So I thought that was really cool. And that's how they went off the air. So an awesome finish to an awesome match to an overall really great show. Like I said, it started with a great NXT Championship match with Finn Balor and Adam Cole, which had a cool finish there with the return of Johnny Gargano. And then you have this match here, which was good, but it was elevated with those last 5 or 7 minutes and just the drama with that. And this is why the NXT Women's Division is the best women's division going on right now. It's better than Raw, it's better than SmackDown, it's better than AEW. It is the best women's division going, and it is probably the strongest women's division in wrestling, at least in the States, right now. I'm not going to include Japan and Shimmer and all that kind of stuff, but right now, currently in the States, I have to give it to NXT. And now it is, capped with Rhea Ripley standing on top. As for Shayna Baszler, I think it's pretty obvious what they're going to do with her. I don't know if she's going to just disappear from TV altogether now and then reappear at the Rumble, but she is easily 100% my pick to win the Women's Royal Rumble and challenge Becky Lynch for the Women's Championship at WrestleMania and beat Becky Lynch for the championship at WrestleMania. Only way that doesn't happen, in my opinion, is if they manage to convince Ronda Rousey to return before WrestleMania so she can win the Rumble and she can challenge Becky. But the way I see things going is Shayna wins the Rumble, then goes to WrestleMania and beats Becky Lynch with the assist from Ronda Rousey. So Ronda Rousey won't compete at WrestleMania, but she will help Shayna Baszler win and beat Becky Lynch for the championship at WrestleMania. So that's my early prediction now. And as for Rhea Ripley, I mean, come on, the plethora of talent down there, there's many to choose from for her. So sky's the limit. And so that's it for me. I did catch some of the stuff from AEW, but not really enough to form a whole lot of thoughts. So that's about it. I thought TLC was going to be my last review of the year, but apparently this was, because I just couldn't pass up the opportunity to talk about this show. So really good stuff. And like I mentioned on TLC, I'll mention it again here. Thanks for indulging me and listening to me rant and rave about pro wrestling in the year 2019, and I look forward to seeing you all in 2020. So until then, check all you guys later.